Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alchemy of Thought. I am your host Tisha Monet, and I am sitting here with Cassandra Menard MSW and relationship coach. She is going to just dive in and peel back some of the layers when it comes to relationships, so make sure you guys stay tuned because we are about to get deep.
Yes.
It's me again, Tisha Monet, the host of Alchemy of Thought, and welcome to another episode. I am so happy to kick off season 2, dropping like so many gems. Let's dive a little bit deeper to what caused this self-transformation into mental alchemy. So just jumping right into the conversation, let's get started with what first interested you in becoming a relationship coach and specifically being an advocate for men?
Sure. Well, first I want to say thank you for having me. I'm super excited
You're welcome.
to be here. So I became a relationship coach for a couple of reasons. I've always been attracted to relationships, healthy relationships.
Okay.
And when I started to go to school, I was, heavily into my Christian lifestyle, and nothing really landed. So I tried to find my way, and I ended up getting my master's in social work, and I just still felt like something wasn't matching. And I realized there was a couple things that were going on mentally for me. One, growing up Christian, I was told that women are to work with women or men are to work with men. So that was always running in the background of my mind as far as I'm not allowed to work with men. And then secondly, getting my master's in social work, we could talk about women's issues, we might talk about children's issues, but there really wasn't like a men's center. There wasn't a class on men's issues, and that's something that I was always very curious about. And I got married, I became a stay-at-home wife and mom, and then our marriage just began to disintegrate, and we couldn't put it back together quick enough. So during our separation, I've started to study completely thoroughly. I'm an avid researcher, and I started to learn about feminine and masculine energy. And then from there, I realized that I really want to work with men. Yeah.
So you basically felt like that they were disproportionately not represented in schools and culture and society.
Absolutely.
Men, there's no voice for men, right? I feel like too, they are so much pressure on them about what it is to be a man and what they live up to. So okay, with that, so what is the main objective and mission for the work that you do? What is the point that you're trying to get across to the viewers or just people that you work with?
I would say that my main initiative or my main mission is just healthy families, and I think that the men should go first. That's just my personal conviction. I don't think that I'll work with men forever, but I do think that they deserve a lot of attention based on the abundance of expectations we have on men and the lack of resources and support that men receive. So for example, say if I needed a ride, or if I was if I'm working with a colleague and he's a gentleman, he would ask me, do you need a ride home? And that would be totally acceptable. But if it were the reverse, and we're grown, right? And the man is like, oh, could you drop me home? He might get the side eye. You know
I see that.
You understand what I'm saying? So what happens with that is, if a man lacks the resources for, say, transportation, what is the likelihood that he'll chase or he'll grind in the same way that a woman might, because we just expect that women get support.
I see. Yeah. Oh wow, that's actually a great point. And what does because you mentioned help with healthy relationships. What does that healthy relationship look like from your professional opinion?
I honestly would say it depends on the couple. A healthy relationship looks like where both parties feel fulfilled, and that requires people to be honest, authentic, and to be in discovery. So lots of curiosity. We can't come into relationships thinking that we know it all. We just have to kind of be open-minded and be coachable. I think coachable is a really good one. You don't know everything, and you have to learn your partner too.
Absolutely. Everyone's different. That's great. So from your professional experience, what is the main missing components or components that is missing in Black relationships? And then how are both individuals held accountable for this missing component?
So let's separate those a little bit so I handle them properly. Could you repeat the first one again? again?
Yeah, so the first part of the question is, what is the main missing component in Black relationships?
Yeah.
From you know, talking to many different relationships, is there a synergy there? Is there, you know, a common, what's the word? A common ground that you see is missing from all these relationships?
I would definitely say, and I can't necessarily say that it's Black relationships in particular, because I really think there's a challenge with feminine and masculine energy that I see play out no matter the culture.
Really? Okay.
100%.
Okay.
And the component that's missing, or that could stand to be pulled back a bit, is an element of selfishness. We're in constant, if I was going to say what Black people experience, constant self-preservation.
Yes, the ego. We're
Yeah.
ego-driven.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and that self-preservation, when you're in self-preservation, you cannot create, right? Now we're talking about the limbic system, now we're talking about the mind, we're talking about neuroplasticity, right? This is scientifically proven that in a state of making sure that you're safe, who is creating anything? You're looking to be grounded. And so when you have a man or a woman or both parties who are just in a constant state of stress, you cannot create the relationship of your dreams, because you're busy hoarding values, principles, ideas, ideals, needs. And so I hate to talk from a place of ego, because it's like the thing with the ego is there's a lot of shame happening. But the real root of the issue is we don't have the language, we don't have the tools to describe what makes me feel good, and how I can create that in my relationship.
So, and what does that take? That sounds like you're kind of leaning into the healing aspect, right? Of like learning what is it that makes you, like what fulfills you in the relationship. And in order for someone to find that out, they have to heal. They have to find out who they are. Is that kind of like what that goes into?
Not necessarily. And the reason why I say that is because we're constantly healing. The body always wants to heal.
Well, I'm speaking on the spiritual realm.
spiritual-
Yeah, like and mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever's in the spiritual, so is in the natural.
Okay.
They're not mutually exclusive. But I would say is as a rule of thumb, if we don't understand a thing, we seek to change it. Right? So if something doesn't make sense to us, as opposed to being in discovery, what happens is we're trying to change it.
Okay.
So when the feminine doesn't understand the masculine and its principles and how it operates, she seeks to change it. And what that could look like is requiring or requesting for him to be, you know, emotionally available in the way that she is, or to be communicative the way that she is, not realizing that even science has proven that I think that women have about 20,000 words more readily available to them than men do. So I think women are at 30K and guys are like 10K.
Yes, I
So we're
heard
talking
something
about
like that.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
talking about a 20,000 word gap here.
Yes.
Right? Cool. So when Aaliyah said that she wrote a 4-page letter, that is not revelatory of the amount of love that she could express, because a man could write a paragraph and it could be just as deep, if not deeper. But we're judging men, we're judging the masculine based on what the feminine can create, can do. So like that old, I think it was kind of that old song that would say, anything you can do, I can do better. And it was like a guy and a girl. I think that was just like a foreshadow of the kind of the era we were being ushered into.
Yes.
Because now women are doing so many things better than guys. We're pulling the masculine into a feminine role, and men are miserable. You understand? So, and guys are doing it to women too. So guys want women to be less emotional because it's too much for him to handle.
Yes.
Guys are wanting women to perform in a way that makes sense to him. So there's a lot of that 50-50 happening.
Yes.
I don't say that it's wrong, but I'll say that there are consequences to that.
Yes.
If you understand the feminine, you will understand the more that she can relax, the more that she feels fulfilled, the more her feminine essence will come out. So a lot of single parent households or single mother households, those women are masculine not by choice per se, but to survive.
Yes.
Right? So how are we going to ask single mothers to be feminine?
To be soft. She's
Yeah.
not in that space. She
It's
can't be in that
unrealistic.
space. That's not her situation, her living situation.
Correct.
That's great. That's a great way to put it. And then, so the second end of that question is to hold both parties accountable. So like you said, so I guess it would be taking a step back and understanding that the masculine energy is not going to reciprocate the same energy that the feminine would.
Right.
Like, for example, the man not being able to be as communicative communicative as the female. Now, how do two people coexist in a healthy relationship if, let's say, one partner, the feminine energy is the communicator and the masculine energy is less? How would they coexist? How would they overcome that obstacle?
Sure. So the first part of your question was about the accountability. I would say that I think it's imperative that we really get to learn ourselves and one another, right? Because when I first learned about feminine and masculine energy, and I learned that when I feel threatened, my masculine will show up, because everybody has feminine and masculine energy,
yes, absolutely.
Right? So it's not just like women are just embody feminine energy and that is all, and I honestly don't recommend it, because if you're feminine all the time, nothing is getting done. You're not getting anything done. You're chilling, you're relaxing, you know?
Yeah.
You might feed me some grapes. It's unrealistic, right? It's not happening. So I do recommend that there is not necessarily balance, but harmony in your feminine and masculine essence. The best way to hold one another accountable is to first learn what feminine and masculine energy is and make it okay, and speak from that space. This is what my feminine is needing, this is what my masculine is needing.
Yes.
And that's how we hold each other accountable, by becoming educated.
Yes, educated and being truthful in what it is that you really seek and desire.
Absolutely.
You know, I think from my experience that, and just talking to different people and being in relationships, people are not showing up as their authentic selves.
Of course.
It's more so of
Your representative.
Yes, and what society thinks that you should be, and how can I be more accepted to this person. But, you know, showing up, what does your feminine energy really require of this man, and vice versa for the masculine energy?
I actually had a talk on that, and this is a little bit of a segue, but I feel that it begs
absolutely.
attention, which is that I had a post on my page, on my Instagram page, that says, like, you're not dating me, you're dating my representative. You know what I mean? Like, you're not, it's beyond a representative, you're dating my coping mechanism, right? So if I'm a black woman, or not if I am a black woman, but if my shtick or if my desire is to prove myself to be intelligent, right? You might see me as intelligent, but I'm overcompensating because I fear being ridiculed, or I fear the color of my skin to determine my intellect. And so how does that play on my relationship? So you're seeing me, you're like, oh wow, she's brilliant, she's beautiful, you know, she's well spoken, and all these positive things, not realizing that I'm in hyperdrive. I don't even want to skip a beat in life for fear of looking like something I don't want to look like, right?
And that's just your representative showing up in all areas, not even just in the relationship.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary though. I feel like you're constantly living in a place of anxiety because your fear of judgment.
Absolutely.
For showing up as your authentic self, and you're like, no, wait, I don't want to be seen as that. Let me go tap back in.
And that's why relationships are a vessel for healing, because you don't know what you're doing until you're in a relationship. So I do not believe that unless you're healthy, you should not be in a relationship. You don't know how unhealthy you are until you have to share sacred space.
Now, okay, so to comment on that, now is there a line though? Because you have some people that I feel like most of society suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. Like we all have like narcissistic traits in us, and to the extent where some is detrimental and harmful for building relationships. Now, are you speaking towards those types of individuals as well? Okay.
Nothing extreme.
Okay.
You know, like, of course, every woman, child, and man should be safe. So no physical, emotional, you know,
manipulative. But because sometimes the person itself that's suffering from it are unaware that they are like this.
They're unaware.
So it kind of where the compassion comes out. They too deserve to be in a relationship and and love and to start healing. But how when they don't even see that there's something wrong with their behavior, but it's like, but they are this person, and it's kind of like. I don't know. I feel like that's where the compassion come in. Should they see? No.
She said no. When it gets to a point where there's so the key to a healthy relationship is remorse.
Okay.
That is the bare minimum. When somebody starts saying things like, I don't give a F, or they don't care about you can't share sacred space.
Yes.
You can't. It's impossible, right? So you can be in a relationship. I've coached couples where the husband or the wife might say something that is, incredibly unhealthy and insensitive to state, but because they demonstrate remorse and they really, in their sincerity, the relationship is safe.
Okay.
Because there's a willingness, there has to be a willingness to want to evolve and to grow and to change.
Okay.
So when that bare minimum is beyond the narcissism, and I do believe that there is a bit of that in everybody, because the word of God even says that in the last days, people become lovers of themselves, and that's what narcissism is, right? Based on the Greek mythology. So yes, I do believe that we have that. So we need to practice remorse. We need to practice being in our heart space a lot.
Okay, wonderful. Well said.
Yeah.
So, and this just ties into what we were talking about, but I want you to like really dive deep into it, because you definitely hit the nail. So the next question is, why is it important for the woman to lead with her feminine energy in a relationship? We're talking specifically for heterosexual relationships for this particular conversation. Why do you feel like it's a contributor to a relationship?
Sure. So feminine energy is the juice. Let me tell you guys a little bit of the story.
Juice.
It's story time. It's tea time. So when I got out of my relationship, I was, of course, in my masculine, right? So my daughter was 18 months old.
Okay.
I was with my ex-husband. We were together for a total like 14 years. So it was like the only relationship that I ever had. I was exceptionally defensive. And I was talking to this one guy, knew him for many years, and our communication was very combative.
Okay.
When I started,
You and your ex-husband?
no, this new guy I was
new
talking
guy. Okay.
to. New guy. My ex-husband and I, our relationship was also combative, but that's like a hefty, it was there's so much to unpack there.
Okay.
But with this gentleman, he and I, so for example, he would want to talk about sex, right? And I just felt like, whoa, like why are we even talking about this? And my approach to it was, I was in my masculine because I felt unsafe. And when I learned about feminine energy, I started to change, my language began to shift. So instead of saying like, how dare, I would say, I'm not ready for that right now, or as to not make it a hard stop.
Yes.
But it's still inviting, but then there's a boundary.
Yes.
So it's a both and.
Okay.
And I saw in that one relationship, that dynamic, it went from being combative to smooth sailing, even though I was still standing up for myself.
Yes.
I was not giving in. I wasn't felt pressured into having sex with him. I never had an intimate relationship with him. And I no longer had that combative energy.
Yes.
So that's so much to say that a lot of the tension that happens in relationships is coming from the woman, because it's how she's reciprocating and responding, and a soft answer can turn away wrath.
Yes.
So one of the reasons why it's important is because, especially if you're a woman, if you have estrogen, you just probably have more access to your feminine energy, and the masculine is craving that. He needs it, and we have an abundance of it. It's no different from the same thing. If you're a man and you have testosterone, you're just stronger than we are. You just have more energy than we have, and we're craving that, and we need it, and it's totally fine, and it's okay. So being in your feminine, it helps a man to feel again. When I work with gentlemen, or when I've dated guys, that's one of the things that I heard consistently before I really started to deep dive into feminine energy, because I kept hearing the same thing again, like, you help me to feel again, you help me to feel. I'm like, well, what were you doing before? Like, you weren't feeling at all. Like, what does this mean?
You help them tap into their feminine energy as well.
Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that was basically what they were experiencing. So with me and the other guy, that was just masculine energy on his end and masculine energy on my end. And having that energy, both energies present, makes it hard to coexist.
That leads into my very next question.
Yeah.
Perfectly well said.
Yeah.
So it is hard for a relationship to coexist
100%.
because and we're talking all relationships, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're heterosexual,
Doesn't
homosexual,
matter.
there always has to be a dominant masculine energy and
Absolutely.
a feminine energy, whether it's the same sex or not.
Well, I want to kind of massage that a little bit.
Okay.
Because it also depends. So it makes it hard to coexist if it's a constant.
Okay.
If it's linear.
Okay.
So what that looks like is, say I'm in a relationship with a guy, he's a creative, and creative energy is deemed to be feminine.
Okay,
right?
okay.
He's a creative. What happens is nothing is going to get done. Right? So we're not going to achieve anything. We're not going to accomplish, because we're just going to be both very relaxed.
Yes.
And if there's a relationship where there's an abundance of masculine energy, we can both be in hyperdrive where there just isn't enough of the emotion or the heart space being addressed in the relationship. However, right, some people can utilize each energy in different areas.
Okay.
So say, for example, as a stay-at-home mom, you are going to be in your masculine
As a stay-at-home mom, okay.
100%.
Okay.
It's almost impossible to be a stay-at-home mom and not tap into your masculine. Things have to get done.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to control the home. Otherwise, things will be scattered all over the place. It'll be crazy.
Okay.
And so in that space, yeah, you do want to tap into your masculine energy.
But that's the right time for it. Got you. All right.
There you go.
Now, is it hard turning it on and off?
If you're unaware of what's happening,
Okay.
the more that you're aware, the more that you're clear, the more that you're coming from a space of choosing. I'm choosing to show up.
Yes.
Like this. Then you can have more. You can just practice what I believe God has put it. God said that He made us in the image of Him. Right. He's always choosing how He's showing up, how loving. Whether it's time for judgment. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
You know, there's a time to be masculine and there's a time to be feminine, and there's a time to have some sort of a harmony, right? So there's no way to like equate 50-50. You can't balance it out. I have to be conscious in my choice. Okay, I'm going to work on something, this project. I need to be my masculine right now.
Yes.
That needs to be the dominating force.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so when a man is holding a baby, he don't need all that masculine energy.
Yeah,
he can tap into
absolutely.
his feminine
Yes.
and just create a loving and a soft and a tender environment. That's what healthy masculinity can look like.
Yeah, so let's talk about that too. The toxic masculinity, right? The need to always feeling to overcompensate with the testosterone and the assertiveness and the aggression and the violence, right? That comes from, would you agree, society, right? Place that onto men or
I can't
culture?
prove it. I understand the theory.
Okay.
And I accept the theory, but I can't prove it to emphatically say that that's
So
where it's
what
coming
would be
from.
some other components that would come from?
I just think that's just human nature, just our human nature of not understanding, not knowing that we can choose from different things. And I prefer not to use the word toxic. I prefer to use like healthy and unhealthy, because when something is toxic, it can't be changed, right? Like Clorox is toxic. It doesn't matter if you dilute it or whatever, like it's toxic. It's not going to change. But unhealthy and healthy, we can have some sort of variation in that. We're always growing, we're always, evolving. And so in a space of unhealthy or a wounded masculine is what like popular culture would refer to it as, like wounded feminine, wounded masculine. We both, men and women, a man can have wounded feminine, which is constantly complaining, and a woman can have wounded feminine aspects, which is the same thing. So it really doesn't matter. But the overabundance in men being hyper driven into being so masculine that they lack that feminine essence, I think it's part society. I definitely think society plays a role in it. And I also think that it's just also, when you study the way that a man's brain works, they're wired to operate like that.
Okay.
So if there's a belief, right, that it's important to show up being controlling, right, which is a masculine trait, but it's healthy.
But in the healthy manner, yes.
Yes, control is neutral.
Yeah.
Right, but when someone is trying to control everything around them and not themselves, that is unhealthy.
Yes.
And so we get to work on that. So a lot of it does come from society. A lot of it can be cultural. So especially like in Latin cultures, they talk about like that machismo, and there's like just this positive thought about it. But the lack of the feminine energy is what causes it to be unhealthy.
Okay.
So you can be super masculine, you know what I mean? You can be, but as long as you're not seeking to control others.
Okay.
As long as you're not looking to like just empower over others,
Yes.
you're pretty good.
Yes, so that's the well balance there.
Yeah.
Having accountability for yourself, right, and not imposing your masculine energy on everything around you,
Correct.
trying to control it. That's
Correct.
the balance there, where
Correct.
it's not neither unhealthy. Well, not unhealthy. We'll just leave it at that.
To control is also, you're blocking, right? And the feminine, or even when you go to a Home Depot or something like that, right? They always talk about like which one is the boy, which tool is the boy, which one is the girl, which one is giving, which one is receiving. And if a man is not receiving information, right, from his family as far as what their needs are, if he's telling you,
Constantly
this
telling
is what
you.
I'm giving.
Yeah.
That is unhealthy
Yeah.
behavior, right? Because a lot of it is we have to figure out what our partners need. If you come home and you say, well, I provide and I pay all the bills, but what she's asking for is for you to touch her, right? Now those are two different buckets.
Two different buckets,
So you're not
absolutely.
receiving what she's being said, and if you can't receive data, if you can't receive information, then you cannot provide the need. So you're not providing.
So you're providing the essentials, but not in the capacity that is also being reciprocated for the other person.
Correct.
Like you can do, like, you know, it kind of goes into loving someone the way you want to be loved.
Yes.
You can never assume that you are loving someone correctly, because the way that you want to be loved and the way that you receive is not the way that your partner may do it. So you give it the way you want it,
Correct.
but it's not necessarily the way your partner wants
Correct.
it, and it doesn't resonate with them as love, because that's not their language.
Yes.
That's beautifully said.
And the opposite of that, just because I don't want to, like, you know, like harass the masculine.
Yeah.
But to give a good example of like what that looks like in the feminine, you know, as an analogy, is like Eve in the Bible. She received too much. She believed too much. So when the serpent came and he was just, he beguiled her, as the word says, she took this information and she digested it. She treated it like it was a fact, right? So then she is just overly receptive, and that's unhealthy, right? Because then we'd be receiving toxic energy. We're receiving, so that's like when women take on too much, and she's so nurturing and she's so understanding and she's so, you're no longer safe.
Yes.
And that's how sometimes women end up overly relying on their masculine, because when trauma occurs, it's embedded in our minds.
I did say that part again. Relying on when we're too embedded in the feminine energy and we're overly relying on the masculine. That is a great point.
Yeah,
a really great point.
It will supercharge.
Yes.
Because now we're looking to overcompensate for something where we felt like we betrayed ourselves as a woman, right? So if I find myself to trust a man, and date rape is real as an example, right? If I find myself trusting a man and something happens like that to me, I'm going to control everything around me.
Yes.
As an attempt to avoid anything like that ever happening again. And so then that creates judgment, right? So everybody's like, oh, you won't let anybody in, but you don't know her story.
Yes,
you don't know his story. That trauma is living in my brain, and I'm not going to forget it easily. It's going to stay there. And so everything that I do and don't do is going to be operating from that
space. Yes.
As we were talking about in the beginning.
Yes.
That's why I say, like, being in a relationship, in a healthy relationship, can be transformative, because a man or a woman who's curious enough and they're not in self-preservation can ask questions like, what happened to you? Like, what's going on?
Why do you do this the way that you do it? Or why do you, when I say something or do this, why do you respond the way that you do? And then really peel back the layers and understand, why do I respond that way when he say that, or when he touch me that way? Or if he, because it takes me back to that triggering place.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So moving forward, right? How would you say generational trauma and slavery has impacted the way the black man interacts with the black woman? Like, how does that?
So I'm not a historian. I have studied. I have researched. So I just want
from a professional opinion.
Just my professional opinion. So I believe that trauma lives in the body, and I believe that trauma passes on generationally.
It does, absolutely.
And I believe that it can also be taught. And I just think that it depends on who was it that you're a part of. So maybe from Oprah Winfrey's like descendants, or not her descendants, but her ancestors rather, where somebody was strong. Someone was dared. Would dare for somebody to say that they couldn't, and maybe she's drawn from that. And how this affects us as a society is, especially other cultures, when they see a Oprah Winfrey, when they see a Will Smith, when they see a LeBron James, they want all of Black America to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. When they hear that story, they think we should all operate
be able
like
to
that.
do it. Yes.
And so now other people who are not operating at that level are shamed. So it's not only happening in our culture, it's everybody, how people are interpreting it, because nobody wants to take responsibility and accountability for what happened back then.
Yes.
But I always find it so fascinating how people want to say that slavery was so long ago, but they want to talk about their childhood like it was yesterday. So you can talk about your childhood and how it's affecting your attachment style.
Yes.
But we can't talk about slavery that happened on a national level. International level.
And then that knowledge,
for centuries.
For some of us, segregation and Jim Crow, that was only like 2 grandmothers ago, 3 grandmothers ago. That teaching goes down from her daughter to her daughter, which is then your grandmother. That really, it's like you said, trauma is held in the body on a cellular level. level, and then also it's mentally taught.
Absolutely.
And because it's embedded in our brain, it's literally passed down through DNA.
Absolutely.
So, and I really think that affects. And I feel like, how would you say we can get back though? Like with all the things that you said and the practices, what is some things that you would tell someone that is like really struggling? Like, I do believe that I am embodying unhealthy masculine energy or unhealthy feminine energy. How would they bring themselves back? Like, what are some beginning steps that they could take?
So really it takes you to explore. There is no one answer, because we're not monoliths, men or women. And everybody can talk about their healing process, but the process to beginning the healing process is to begin. Whether you start from drinking water, like literally, if anybody wanted to know where to begin, I said just start drinking water, child. Because if I got to tell you about like the depths that you could go through, you could just get lost in the sauce.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But what happens is when you're intentional, when you're daring to just go ahead and figure out who you are and what you really want, the doors will open.
Yes.
And when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
So some
absolutely.
of my teachers that came up in the beginning of my healing journey may show up at somebody's last, and vice versa.
Yes.
So really it is to begin. Go where you feel you're being called, where you feel like you're being led to or pulled.
Yes, whatever resonates with you and your journey, and whatever traumas that you need to tackle.
Yes.
Because it looks different for everyone.
Yes.
But just begin.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the analogy that I like to use a lot is like, I love The Lion King.
Okay, I do too, girl. Mufasa.
Yeah. I love The Lion King. And I watched it, and recently I watched it with new eyes, and I was just like, oh my gosh, Simba went through the dark night of the soul. And I look at that as in when he finally sees Rafiki, and Rafiki is like, I know where your father is. And he's like, where is he? He was just like, he's over there. And he like goes through this dark tunnel. And the dark night of the soul is also likened to like the birth canal. And, and Simba went through his process, but he went through that process when he was ready.
Yes.
Right? Because up until that point, he was denouncing his father, right? Up until that point, he didn't want anything to do. I mean, he was eating like a meerkat and eating worms and grub and all kinds of stuff just outside of himself.
Yes.
And he had the knowledge of who he was, but he just wanted to escape all of that, right? Because of the trauma associated with the death of his father and his interpretation of that. And children record very well, but their interpretation is flawed.
Yes, because they're not mature enough yet.
Exactly.
Yes, their brain
so the interpretation that Simba had about himself is that whereas when he was a child, he couldn't wait to be king. His interpretation from the trauma is he didn't deserve to be king. And so he did everything that he could to prove that he didn't have to do with anything of that. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to our generational trauma or just, from slavery is, you're telling me that I'm a king. You're telling me that I'm a queen. You're telling me that I'm royalty, but I'm growing up in the projects. I'm growing up in this environment where I'm smelling pee and like all kinds of like defecation. I'm having all these smells. Poverty has a smell, has a scent. I don't have anyone. This is who you're telling me that I am. I'm going to do everything that I can to fulfill the prophecy that I believe that is my life. Not according to where you're saying I come from, but according to my reality, to my reality, my interpretation of my reality, because that is also key.
Wow, very well said. I love it. I love it. Okay, so as a relationship coach and advocate for men, what are some of your thoughts on some of the pressures that men face in society? How do you, as Cassandra, feel about maybe this just isn't right, or if you can change something? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, honestly, my soul grieves for men, and I don't take any credit for it. I think that's something that God
very compassionate
gave to me.
Yeah.
For me to do in order for me to do this work, and I'll tell you what that looks like. I have heard from just about every professional that I've worked with that shares the same relationship space with me to say, don't work with men. Women got the bag. Men are not invested in their growth. They're hard-headed. They've said a lot of terrible things, and it has given me pause because, of course, as much as I would love to work with men, I also have my own response. I have to honor myself as well in the process, right? So I want to make a living from this, but it hasn't deterred me. It's only strengthened me along the way because I'm just like, my goodness, you guys are so invested. What is the world going to look like if we could ideally have it that all Black women across the nation could be healed? What does that honestly look like? When you're asking them to partner up and be responsible in their choosing with the family man.
Yes. Yes.
And we should just forget about men and forget about their wealth building and their testosterone and their needs that get to be different. Whereas they don't have to emote the way a woman emotes, and he can still be right. Right? We're not looking to make him wrong. And what does it look like? It looks like what we have.
Chaos.
Absolutely. It looks like the chaos that we have. It looks like a society judging men who cannot provide 100%, that 50-50 dynamic, right? It looks like men being accused of being women, or as Sean Diddy Combs, or however he wants to be called now, bitch assness, right? I don't know if I can curse, y'all forgive me, beat me out.
No, it's alright, it's alright.
When people are judging,
yes,
it is, to me, I liken the state of affairs when it concerns men, in particular the black man, I call it criminal.
Yes.
It is criminal behavior to expect men to show up in a way that they are to provide emotionally, financially, physical protection, spiritual protection, right? Do all of that, right? And show up and take care of themselves with limited resources, limited opportunities to express what they need, and limited opportunities to be able to express what they need.
Yes.
It is without question that I believe that's one of the reasons why, from the ratio of men to women when it concerning the suicide rates, is double for black men.
It is, absolutely.
Because where can he go? Where can he realistically go for help without being accused
of lacking
of being
something?
weak?
Oh, weak, yes.
Or not being strong. But we want that man to raise a whole entire family, build a legacy, and his wealth, cover, protect, provide for his woman. What is he getting? Like, what is he getting?
But would you argue that that is the natural role of a man? So his getting would be him being fulfilled and him completing his mission, right? Well, that's
he has to know that. What is the rites of passage?
Yes. Yes.
He has to be ushered into that.
Yes.
You don't just become 18, 21, and poof, you're a man.
Not at all. You have to have those resources
need to be
around
groomed.
you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so do I think that is healthy? Yes. It's been proven scientifically that giving, no matter the gender, increases testosterone. Like, when people ask me, well, how do I increase my testosterone? Start giving.
Start giving.
It's literally proven.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that as God in the form of being expressed as man, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. To love is to sacrifice. There is no substitute for that. So if a man is not in order to sacrifice something, it means you have to have ownership of something. How am I sacrificing something I don't have?
Yes.
How am I loving you? I don't have anything to give. I cannot give and I cannot sacrifice. So, and we're judging men on their capacity to love, to be emotionally available. How?
So how do we reverse that, though? Because we can't stay stagnant in this era, right? Because it's constantly a tug of war. Yeah. The woman is, I want to receive this, I want to receive this, and the man is like, I don't have it to give.
Correct.
I don't have it to give.
Correct.
So we have to go back to the drawing board and create alchemy. We have to create gold from metal and scraps. What does that look like?
Yes. So to understand a thing, we would understand, we won't change it. Right? So men are in this space, or and I don't want to not to encompass all men, right? But the conversation that's being had around black men in particular is that they're wanting and they're needing. They're more in their feminine, right? Because they're being raised by women, and that is because men have not been in the homes, right? So they're lacking that masculine energy. At this point, we just need to accept that this is the state of affairs that we are currently in.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
And we need to start looking at what feminine and masculine energy looks like, healthy and unhealthy, wounded and healed, so that we can make the distinctions and start choosing from that space. Okay. Both parties.
Yes. Both parties. Accountability.
Yes. Both parties. And that's a lot of uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
Right? I also think that we need to take a holistic approach. So we need to learn how to communicate. We need to learn how to communicate in a healthy way, as opposed to saying something like, you're never there for me. It could sound like, I'm in this moment, I need you. This is what it looks like for me, for you to show up for
and
me.
Don't use the extreme words like the never or all the time or you never, because that automatically puts the person in the defense mode, right? We're human, we're not robots. So I'm going to now defend myself to your your interrogation, like, you know,
your verbal hits.
Yes, and
we're fighting.
And so now we can't even handle the problem because now I'm just defending myself. So
Correct.
and that comes from healthy communication.
And that comes from practicing
healthy
so
communication.
If you were not raised to communicate like that, and whether your partner was raised that way or not, that's going to show up in your relationship. So for me, I always say, like, in my process of dating, I'm looking for somebody that I can practice life with, right? Because as a relationship coach, in my professional space, I can be very attentive, very compassionate, understanding. I know I'm working. You know, I'm working. You know, I can show up as my best self.
Yes.
You know, I can show up as my representative.
Yes.
Right. And you know, in an hour session. But when that hour session is gone, I'm gonna relax, everything coming off. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And the same thing happens in a relationship naturally. My representative is going to show, but who am I when the mask is when the masks are off, right? We're talking about the professional, we're talking about the mother, we're talking about the sister, we're talking about, you know, according to Kevin Samuels, I have to smile now in the street before the black man doesn't want to, you know, take care of me. I have to show up as all these different things to satisfy all these different people. But who am I at the core of Cassandra in my relationship? I need a mirror for that, right? Because I'm so used to wearing a mask, but I need a mirror, and my mirror is my partner. My partner, provided that they're compassionate and loving, and we both share a space of remorse, can say, babe, you know, I noticed that this is how you're showing up. What's up with that?
What is going on? Where's that coming from? Wow, beautifully said. So I just have one final question. This has been a phenomenal conversation, and thank you so much for dropping so many gems. I know we spoke a lot about like what healing looks like for the masculine energy and the feminine energy. Can we tap a little bit deeper for what the healing looks like for the black woman? Like, what did it look like for you?
Yeah. So for this, I would definitely say it can vary, especially dependent on the skin tone of a black woman makes
talk about it.
Difference.
Yes, talk about it.
What chocolate girls go through is not the same thing that lighter complexion women go through. It just isn't. And so that process of healing gets to be handled with a lot of tenderness and compassion and understanding for themselves, and being able to just tap into what that looked like for them, especially as a child. In the space of healing, I would say the best clues are going to come from your interpretations that you had from a child. That is going to determine what your healing strategy and journey looks like. So even as a social worker, my healing plans for my clients, they never look the same. It's very rare. The theories I might utilize, I might pull from, but the algorithm rather is going to be tailored to my client.
Yes.
And I think that everybody deserves to have a tailored approach. So you can start with the discovery of what were the things that you were telling yourself, or what are the things that you were told. And the same thing for women who might be considered beautiful, or of a fair complexion. If she was fair and other people in her family were darker, she has traumas too. It doesn't mean that chocolate colored girls are like, you know, just have it the worst and that's it. People who are perceived or occur as beautiful, right? Like that's how I describe it. When somebody occurs as beautiful to a lot of people, there's a lot of pressure in that.
Yes.
Right? Every little smile that she has, she's fast. You know, or you think you cute. You know, and what does that mean? How have you interpreted you thinking that you look cute when
you're just being yourself?
When you're just being yourself. Yes. How did you conduct yourself in relationships?
Wow.
Were you hypersexual to prove that philosophy, or were you closed off as to not prove that philosophy?
Yes.
That's going to determine your avenue and your strategy for your healing.
Wow.
So I don't like to, tell people you have to do this and this and that and the third. Literally start with water is what I always tell people. But outside of that, really start asking yourself, what are the stories that I told myself as a child? Because from that I can gain forgiveness, and forgiveness is the platform and the cornerstone of healing, period.
Yes.
So what that can look like as an example is I look for my original wound.
Okay.
So growing up with my father, I'm a daddy's girl. I'm a grown daddy's girl. I'm grown, but I'm definitely a daddy's girl. I'm so happy that my father's still here with us. But I had to trace back to some of my original wounds, the things that my father said to me, my interpretation of them from that space has helped me to heal.
Yes, and understand now that you're in a more mature healing, because we're continuously healing space, you can now interpret it differently.
Yeah, because I was taking that interpretation and I was lifting it and putting it into every relationship that I was in. And that conversation was, and my father never said anything to me like, you're not enough or you're not good enough. What happened was is my parents divorced, and my parents divorced after me. So the interpretation that I made was that my dad wanted to stay when my eldest sister was born. My dad wanted to stay when my middle sister was born. My dad didn't want to stay when I was born. So the interpretation that I made with that is that I wasn't enough, I wasn't desired, and I wasn't valuable.
Wow, you see how deep that runs? And that's like that's a childhood trauma.
Yes.
And even though it's something that happened to you and your parents probably thought that they were doing the best thing for the entire family, you know, and that looks like different for everyone, but how you interpret it as a child and then carrying that with you into your adult life, and then it's showing up in your relationships, and you're like, this is detrimental, this is unhealthy.
Yes.
Wow.
And what that looks like as an adult is choosing men and my experience in that relationship was that they weren't choosing me. So they wanted to, or for my ex-husband, he wanted to possess me, he wanted to have me, but he didn't know me, he didn't know Cassandra, and he wasn't searching and looking for ways to address my needs. He was looking for ways to address his needs, feeling like he is a man, which looked like providing financially, which looked like going to church, being the stature of what a man looks like for him, as opposed to the man Cassandra needs. And my father showed up like that in the very beginning stages of my life, which is that he showed up as a man, the man that he felt like he would want to say, I'm a good man. And now my father, with the harmony of feminine and masculine energy, he's 70 years old now, and he has many revelations. The way he shows up in my life now is completely different. I'm talking about, if I call my father right now and I say, Daddy, I cannot put the batteries in this remote, this is a true story. My father was like, leave the remote right there, I'm coming over. My father came to me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, came out of his way and sure enough fixed the batteries in the remote, and I was just like, Daddy is so sweet.
Oh.
But that was not my father 30 years ago. My father 30 years ago, figure it out, because he was so driven.
The masculine.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I chose
that nurturing. That's something that a mama would do typically, right?
And that is a demonstration of the harmony of feminine and masculine energy in a man.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So he took care of the situation. I'm going to be there, don't touch it, because he didn't want to get there and then it was done. You know that happens. Like, I'm fixing it. Come like, you said you needed help. So he showed up, right? He's like, baby, I got you, right? So he's using sweet words. He does it, what he said he was going to do. That's masculine energy, committing and having integrity and just being sweet about it. Just that tenderness. And that's what, in the simplest of forms. It doesn't have to be this big, grand to do. It doesn't have to be a production. It could be something so simple. And so, in that moment when my father closes his eyes for the last time, I promise you, I will have almost no memory of anything that he's done in my childhood. I have an abundance. Yeah, like literally, it takes me time to reflect back. So when I did the healing work for myself, tracing from my original wounds, it took me a long time because my relationship with my father is healed from this space of my life. But I started to notice some patterns in my relationship that forced me to go through that dark night of the soul and trace it back. And I'm like, it's so hard because I love my dad so much. And I'm so very well pleased with what he's done. And I even when I look back at what has occurred, I hold no judgment, no shame, no anger, no grief, no regret for what I experienced because the healing has taken place.
Beautiful.
Or it's in the process.
It's in the process. It's continuous.
Yeah, I'm not a cake, y'all. I'm not flour water. I don't go into the oven and come out done.
It's a continuous process. Absolutely. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation, Cassandra. Thank you so much for blessing me and the audience with your presence. If you could just quickly let everyone know where they can find you, your IG handles, social media handles, websites, all that good stuff.
So I'm old school. I can only handle one social media platform at a time. So I'm only on Instagram right now, and you can find me at Ask Miss MSCASSANDRA Cassandra on Instagram. So Ask Miss Cassandra.
Nice. So thank you so much.
Yes,
it has been another episode of Alchemy of Thought. Again, I am your host Tisha Monet, sitting here with Cassandra Menard. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.